got friends down there.
But Joe Howell was asking us.
And replace Bush on the beach.
Good evening, and thank you for coming to tonight's council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly.
Here.
Councilor Dilaba.
Here.
Councilor Fisher.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy. Here. Councilor Powers.
Council Powers has to be excused tonight. He's on some very important business, kind of emergency situation that came up. If anybody would agree to that?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a consensus to excuse Councilman Powers?
Yes.
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 Councilor Reish. Councilor Scamperly.
Yes.
Quorum present.
Did Councilor Rishi let us know ahead of time that
Yes.
he was going to be able to make it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think with consensus of council, that we should excuse him.
Absolutely.
He's on vacation.
Yeah.
Okay. We have two presentations tonight. The first is a property tax and assessments overview presented by real property analyst Kate from New York State Department of Taxation and Finance.
Thank you for inviting me. Whenever there's an opportunity to talk about real property tax, we like to take that opportunity to educate the public and the government, the local municipalities. Yes, my name is Kate Garba, and I work for the Office of Real Property Tax Services, and that's an office within the Department of Taxation and Finance. Our office is in Syracuse, and we handle 15 counties in the central region. I've worked in the office for 27 years. I've worked in 11 of the counties. I currently have a team that covers 8 of the counties, and St. Lawrence happens to be one of them. You might be familiar or have seen Scott LaPena. He actually handles a lot of St. Lawrence. He's the first point of contact. I'll have his email at the end along with mine. But thank you for having me. We're going to go over some really basic kind of stuff because we could get really deep and be here forever. We're going to talk about real property tax. We'll touch base on real property tax law, the job of the assessor, budget and levies, and where the city of Ogdensburg stands with their assessments. I don't know, do you want me to take questions at the end or by slide, or how would you like to do that?
Whatever is most conducive to you, it doesn't matter to us. We can hold our questions till the end or ask him.
That's
If it's
fine.
important, we can interrupt you too.
Sure, that's
Okay.
fine. You can ask me by slide too.
Okay.
Okay, the fundamentals of New York State property assessment and taxation have been in place for hundreds of years with little change. They've actually been around since colonial times. And the premise of that is that property owners are taxed based on their wealth, which is demonstrated by how much real property they own. So real property would be land, structures, and fixed buildings. Real property tax is administered locally. Assessors are typically nowadays appointed, some are still elected. And they are in control of the roll. So they are in control of all the assessments in the roll, except for like state properties, state taxable state-owned land, values like that where the state has a concern in maybe paying property taxes on their land. But basically it's administered locally and owned by the assessor. All revenues go to support local services. The state or the federal government don't get any of the property tax. It covers your law enforcement, fire, schools, highway, everything that you have to take care of in taking care of the town. Everything that the town needs to run. It's called an ad valorem tax because it's based on the value as opposed to, it's based on the value of real property as opposed to a percentage or an income bracket or anything like that. It's based on the value of the real property. It's the only form of taxation that provides the taxpayer opportunity to dispute the base assessments. So the taxpayers or the property owners anytime can go to the assessor or whenever she designates time to take those meetings and ask where the values came from. How did you come up with my value? And also they can bring information before tentative roll, also times designated by the assessor where they can dispute the value. And you know, maybe there's information the property owner has that the assessor doesn't. Or maybe the property owner just wants to know how the assessment was derived at. So that's the good thing about property tax. Let me see. We already said it's been used since colonial times. It's the most stable tax. It doesn't fluctuate like income tax or sales tax might. It stays pretty stable. There are sometimes some ups and downs, but not a drastic, shouldn't be a drastic. You can always kind of prepare for what your property tax, your taxable assessed value would be. Least costly to administer. Only about 2% of the town budgets. I don't know, I didn't do the math, but I do know that most of the offices I have been in, maybe a small town might have a part-time assessor. A city might have one assessor and 1 or 2 clerks. So there's not a lot of overhead for that job. They might have a data collector if it's a city or a bigger town. But that, you know, they seem to be pretty small. That doesn't mean that they don't have enough people to do the job, but even if they had a few more, it still would be probably a small budget. It's difficult to evade. There's no tax shelters, and it's a broad tax. Anybody who owns property should be paying tax on it unless it's wholly exempt. So everybody's paying their share. So the budget versus the levy. So every taxing jurisdiction, the schools, the towns, or the county are responsible for developing a budget, and revenue from all sources, maybe state aid or whatever, or other than property tax is subtracted from the budget to arrive at the tax levy. So that's the amount that you have to raise after the budget. So the tax levy is the amount to be raised by the property tax. That's an amount that goes into a formula that comes up for your tax rate. In addition to the levy, there are 2 other factors that determine property tax. The assessments, they're determined by the assessor, fair market value of each property, and the tax rates are calculated by dividing the tax levy by the total taxable assessed value of real property in your community. So when we talk about assessments, it's the total taxable assessed value that comes into play with the levy. So the tax rate is actually a formula, which is the levy divided by the taxable assessed value. And in the example, I have $10 million is the levy, $500 million is the taxable assessed value, and it actually, the math comes out to 2 cents per dollar, but because the levy is based per thousand, it would be $20 per thousand. So once you have the levy and your taxable assessed value, you can come up with the tax rate. So in this example, let's say that the levy stays pretty even, doesn't change next year, but the taxable assessed value goes up. Maybe you have 1 or 2 new developments or whatever, the taxable assessed value has gone up. You have more to spread that tax, the levy, so the tax rate would go down. In contrast, if your taxable assessed value goes down, for whatever reason, if you are taking taxable assessed value off the roll, but you're still trying to collect that same levy, your tax rate's going to go up. So the job of the assessor wears many hats, and every assessor I know pretty much doesn't have much downtime. So they maintain assessments at a uniform percentage market value each year, and they sign an oath when they submit the tentative assessment rule that they have maintained the assessments at a uniform percent. I'll get to what uniform percent means in the next couple slides, because I really want to hone in on it. They keep the inventory on all parcels accurate and current. So all the subjects should have accurate and current inventory because it comes into play for value. The same as the sales. So the assessor should be checking the inventory and the condition of sales because the sales are what she'll analyze to come up with values for the subjects. So the inventory is very important to keep up on, so you're using the correct type of property to value the subjects with good sales. The assessor will analyze the whole town and update assessments. I know that the city of Ogdensburg has been doing this a long time. You can analyze the whole town and decide where something might need to go up, something might need to go down, and something staying pretty constant. They process a lot of exemptions, inspects new construction. Inspecting the new construction is important because that's putting more assessed value on your roll. You don't want to miss out on any new construction, garages, new homes, whatever you got out there. The assessor is responsible for putting that on the roll so people are paying their fair share of taxes and it's adding to your taxable assessed value. And helps taxpayers understand assessments. So they're there all the time when the taxpayers have a question about anything to do with their property or their assessment. They're the ones that the property owner should go to. These are the real property law requirements for the assessor. The assessor is required to keep assessments uniform as of the valuation date. They sign an oath that the assessments are uniform and state the level of assessment on the tentative roll. They report and make available for review inventory and valuation information. They should have that information for property owners if they want to see it. It's all public information. The assessor should be able to show that to the property owners if they come in and ask. Transmit sale information and corrections. The reviewing and transmitting of the sales is very important, not only for trying to come up with a value for the subjects. It's very important for our office because we use sales to come up with market area trends and ultimately the LOA and EQ rate. Because what my office is tasked to do is to develop EQ rates. We spend a lot of time in what's called FVM, full value measurement, and what we're trying to do is come up with a market value of the whole town. Just like the assessor's trying to come up with a market value per parcel, we have to come up with a market value for the whole town because we compare that to the assessment and establish an equalization rate. And the way we do that is using sales. And so it's very important to make sure those sales are correct. If they're not arm's length or they're not good, they shouldn't be in there. They affect ratios, they affect trends that we develop. So that's a really important part of the assessor's job. And they submit the tentative and final rolls to tax and finance, and they should post the roll online. Those are real property tax law requirements. If I had to guess, real property tax law 305 is the most important because we're talking about how it affects property owners and taxpayers. Real property tax law was enacted in 1981 to ensure that assessments accurately depict market value. This is where I talked about the uniform percentage of value. and that the assessor signs an oath to that effect when they submit the tentative roll. What that means is, New York State says they don't have a law that says you have to be at a certain percentage of it. They will say, some states say 100, some states have different percentages. New York State doesn't care what percentage you're at, as long as you're uniform and equitable. So if you say I'm assessing at 6%, that's fine if you've assessed everybody at 6%. So real property tax law really cares mostly about the uniformity and does not care about the level. Now the levels, if you're doing a reassessment or you're trying to continue the reassessment in a program that we call NRR, which is a non-reassessment, reappraisal reassessment, because we verify that and it's part of one of the criteria for state aid. So we're not going to give state aid to a town that does a reassessment and stays at 6%. 100%, we want 100%, it's easier for the property owners. Nobody wants to do calculations to figure out what their assessment is at 6%. So the town can do whatever they want, but if they want state aid and they do a reassessment, they need to be at 100% and it needs to be equitable, and our office will verify it.
I got a question.
Sure.
So that state aid means all state aid or just?
I'm sorry, just state aid for doing a reassessment,
Oh, okay.
which has been up to $5 a parcel, but for the past many years has been $2.50. So a town can do, or a municipality can do a reassessment and not want state aid, and we can still check it for level and equity. But you know, if they want state aid, we have certain criteria that they have to follow.
Do we get state aid?
Not it being in the
No.
not being in the non-reappraisal reassessment program, which the city has been, because that's not traditional reassessment. So at that point, the city must have done a reassessment at one time, and I'll get to that slide because it's kind of amazing. They've maintained 100% and equitable almost all of the last 20 years. So they don't have to do all the work that goes into a traditional reassessment. Sue can analyze the market and she can make those changes because she's looking at analysis. She started at 100 with a project, a reassessment. And now in the past years, she can rely on that, look at the whole roll and then make changes where she sees fit. Looking at the whole roll and making those changes isn't a reassessment. A reassessment means that valuation sheets have to be run. That's a sheet with comps on it. They have to visit every single property. They have to measure two sides of the property. It's really a big process. So sometimes the 250 isn't even worth the work that goes into it. So so that's the difference. And they can only get reassessment aid every 3 years.
So when I first got on council here, I've been on council for 10 years, we did get state aid for keeping our property value at 100%. Was there a program before that did that?
Yeah, there was a program called annual reassessment. And we were giving state aid briefly for that too, and it was taken away. So then they went to what's called the NRR program, non-reappraisal reassessment, which kind of confused everyone. I wish they called it still annual and just never paid the aid anymore. So no, that program is no longer, and there's only state aid for the traditional reassessments. And it's only every 3 or 4 years that you can get state aid. And I know that a lot of, you have to make sure that you have collected inventory in the past 6 years. So then you're data collecting. You got to data collect if you haven't in the past 6 years. You've got to measure a couple sides. You've got a run sheet. You've got to visit every property. When you're doing the NRR, where you're not getting state aid, I don't want to say it's easier, but you're not doing all that legwork. You're analyzing it with numbers from your desk maybe, and then going out where you think you need to reassess, but you don't have to visit every property. You might have to visit this neighborhood because they've fallen, or this neighborhood because they've increased, or maybe you can't get a good idea of a certain neighborhood, so you're going to go reassess that one neighborhood. The reappraisal would be a lot more work.
Okay.
And reassessment, reappraisal, same thing. So this talks about real property tax law 305, but it tells us what the uniform percentage of value is. And that's the percentage that properties are assessed in municipality and is included on the assessment roll. And for the city of Ogdensburg, it's been 100 forever, the last 10 years. I'll show you a slide of how impressive all those years look. But, you know, like I said, the state doesn't require a uniform percentage. But the assessor has to put it on the roll, and then they sign a note that that's correct. Value is defined as market value. Market value is defined as the most probable selling price between a knowledgeable and willing buyer and seller with no duress. So that's what Sue would be looking for when she's verifying sales. She wants to make sure that that sale was made between a willing and knowledgeable buyer and seller. There was no duress. There was no maybe special financing. If there was any personal property, she'd have to take that into account. So that's really important and a lot of work to look at those sales that you can use to get to market value. And the tax bills must display the municipality's uniform percentage in every parcel's market value. There's real property tax, brain cramp. For the property owners, there's a criteria that we came up with for real property tax, and two of those were putting the uniform percentage of value on the tax bill, so the property owners know what you're saying the uniform percentage is, and the parcel's market value. So the market value is what the assessed value is at 100%. Okay, so if you're assessing at 50, you have to have on the tax bill the parcel's market value. Once again, it's not a problem in the city of Ogdensburg because they've been at 100%. It's actually called the Real Property Taxpayers Bill of Rights. There's certain things that New York State came out and said, you know, this has to make sense for the property owners and the taxpayers. They shouldn't have to look at an assessment that's at 6% and figure out what the market value or full value is. They should know on the tax bill so they can do what they need to do, either agree with it or talk to the assessor. The assessor does not create the market value. Market value is determined by the interaction of buyers and sellers. And then once again, the assessors monitor and analyze real estate to establish market value estimates for all real property. So they're just keeping an eye on those sales to see what the market's doing. One year it could be one neighborhood, another year it could be another. Could be different type of parcels actually. It could be commercial properties are increasing at a different rate than residential, vice versa. So they're watching the market a lot. I can't remember how many residential sales the city of Ogdensburg has in a year.
It's usually around 400.
Well, yeah, so that's a lot of sales. So Sue could analyze those 400 residential sales by neighborhood typically to see where she's got to make changes. And if she doesn't have 25 sales per neighborhood to get a good idea of what needs to change, she can go back maybe 2 years and she's got 800 sales. That's a lot of sales to be able to analyze and decide where to make those changes. So, so you're ahead of the game if you have lots of sales to analyze, because a lot of, some towns have 2 sales a year, and then they got to kind of widen that market area.
Excuse me.
Assessment equity. Once again, real property tax law 305 means that properties are assessed at uniform percentage of value, and that way properties with similar values are paying similar taxes. When assessment equity exists, it ensures that tax burden is distributed fairly among all taxpayers. Obviously, nobody likes to pay taxes. Nobody's saying, can I have a second helping? Nobody wants to pay them, but they should be fair. Because if there's somebody who's under-assessed, nobody ever goes to the assessor and says they're under-assessed, right? I mean, do you ever have anyone? So if somebody's under-assessed, somebody's over-assessed. So trying to keep up with those changes in the market is important. So my office, what we do is if we verify the town at 100% and we say they're equitable, we're looking at an overall. So we're not able to look at individual parcels. So there still might be parcels in the town where there needs adjusting, or the property owner has better information that maybe the assessor didn't have. So there's always kind of some tweaks and stuff. So we're not saying that every parcel in the town is equitable. We're saying overall the town is equitable and they're at 100%. Okay, so both Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones have an assessed value of $100,000. But their true full market value is different. Mrs. Jones' full market value is $100,000, so that means her assessment is correct. It's representing the market. Mrs. Smith's full market value is $150,000. So she's a little underassessed. So she's underassessed by $50,000. So the slide says Mrs. Jones is subsidizing Mrs. Smith's taxes. Yeah, if you took the $50,000 by, say, that $20 per thousand, so Mrs. Smith should be paying like $1,000 more. And so that's what happens in, you know, when there's an inequitable role. Okay, so I couldn't believe how many years the city of Ogdensburg has been at 100% and equitable. It's amazing, since 2001, it must have been the first year of the reassessment. All the way through 2012, they did a reassessment. And there was a little gap between there. And we have 2016, 17, 18, and 19. That means that there's been a lot of work done on this roll, and we verified it at 100 and equitable, or else they wouldn't be on here. So I think, you know, the assessor, the city government, and the taxpayers should really be proud of this. This is a feat. I haven't seen, I don't know, maybe on one hand I could count this many years where there's been so much work done. So I said the city of Ogdensburg has been verified as being at 100% of market value and equitable among all property types 16 out of the last 20 years. Most recently between 2016 and 19. And even if you count those 4 years that they weren't, I don't know how much equity was lost, maybe some, but they've caught up again, and last year was verified equitable and at 100%. And when I say verified, that's Sue giving us information to tell us why she's at 100. Or if she's not, what is she going to do to fix it? And that's us reviewing it and saying, oh yeah, I agree, Sue. We agree with this. Or we say, no, we don't agree with this. We think that you should fix this neighborhood and this neighborhood. So there's an interaction, and some towns don't pass, you know, we don't agree on it, and then they drop out. So we do review the work, and so I think it's worked out well. Any questions?
Well, it's nice to see that Ogdensburg's fair. We're a very fair city. It's nice to see that there's some regulations and thought put into it, not just a lot of assumptions. And we're just gonna take money because we have some assumptions. So I'm happy about that. Anyone else?
So, I'm looking at Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones.
Okay.
Okay, that slide right there.
Yeah.
So, if Ogdensburg was at 100% equitable, in Ogdensburg, the citizens pay county taxes. And then there's other towns that are not at 100%. Would Ogdensburg then be considered subsidizing their taxes?
No, because what happens within the county and in the schools, wherever there's segments of different towns, that's why we have to establish an equalization rate. And the equalization rate is the total value we think the town is, their total assessed value divided by our market value, to come up with an EQ rate. The EQ rate is applied to bring everybody up to 100. Now, certainly towns that have more full value in general will, typically pick up more because they have more full value. But everybody's at 100%. So City of Ogdensburg, I think what you're asking, if City of Ogdensburg is at 100, does it hurt them?
It wouldn't hurt Ogdensburg.
No.
What I'm saying is if everybody was paying property taxes, let's say, to the county, all right? And so you have a town that's at 50% value. Would Ogdensburg, being at 100% value, be subsidizing, would Ogdensburg residents be subsidizing the taxes, for the county taxes, property taxes, for those towns if they're not at 100%?
No, because before any calculations are made, they bring that 50% town to 100. So we would say their EQ rate is 50%, and we'd apply that to the town. So now they're at 100. So now you get a full value of every town at 100.
Okay.
So now you're playing on a fair playing field. And that's why the equalization rate is there, because they've got to be all at the same level. Same as a school district who has maybe 4 or 5 towns. You can't take different towns that are different levels of assessment. You've got to bring them to 100.
If they're not at 100 is what I'm saying.
Right. That's why we create an equalization rate for every town in the city. So just because the City of Ogdensburg has been 100% because they've done a lot of work, other towns that are at 50%, that 50% equalization rate is applied to their total assessments to bring it to 100. And that's the reason we create the rate.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If we were, there's, a lot of states and a lot of states out west where everything is county. Even their school districts are within one county, so it's a lot easier to establish any criteria for assessing, because everything's within one county. You don't have to worry about school districts crossing or towns crossing, but in New York State, we have a lot of segments that cross.
So in those areas where they have a county school district or something, do they have a county office of assessment and that's it, or do they have separate ones?
Like out west, you mean?
Yeah.
They probably have county assessing, and they probably have a law that says how often they have to reassess, or what level they can get to before they have to reassess. And I would say they're probably more homogeneous. They're more, they're not as unique as New York, and maybe their building styles and everything too, because of how old New York is.
Now I want to go back to the other question I asked you, about the state and giving a little bit of subsidizing for our assessor. How come the state took away that program? Do you know?
It had to do with the state aid money. We were only going to get allocated so much, and we were giving $5 a parcel for
Right.
reassessment and annual. And
Right.
now that's whatever, they give a certain amount every year. I don't know who decides that, the Department of Budget. I don't even know who that is. They say you have this much this year. And depending on how many towns are applying for aid and how many parcels are in each town, that's how much that you'd be eligible for. So when I say it started at $5, it's like at $2.50 something. You could get a town down in the southern part of the state that has, 10,000 parcels, and they might eat up a bunch of that aid. There's only a certain amount of aid that's allocated. And that's not anything, that's nothing, not anything that
Has to do with your
Tax and
office.
Finance or ORPS can,
That's Albany.
yeah.
Yes, it is, Dan. That there's been, I know from my previous job that it was probably 8 or 10 years ago where real property tax services started taking budget cuts from Albany,
Right.
and their functions started to get merged as well.
And,
So,
and even the annual work where you're getting $5 a parcel, a lot of assessors were saying it's still not enough. I'm working, really hard at this, and it's not really giving them extra money. It's a lot of work to maintain it. It's a lot of work that Sue's done to maintain it, or anybody before her. So, I don't know if it's obviously nice to have $5 a parcel. But
Well, we've cut back that office too. It used to be manned by 2 or 3 people, and now we're down to 1, and I know she's got a tough job on her hands.
Oh, yeah, especially the size of the city. Yep. Does that help the explanation with the rate that I explained, but the 2 towns that are,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I thought the
There's
Albany question.
a lot of, see, the thing is that a lot of towns and a lot of town boards and supervisors or cities, they focus on that 100%. The 100% is what they want. It's so important to be at 100. You really need to focus on the equity. You could be at 100% and your residentials are at 50 and your commercials are at 150. And that's not fair.
No.
So it's a hard concept because there is this opinion out there that you do a reassessment if you're at fractional, which means say I'm at 40%, I'm fractional, I'm not at 100, I'm a fraction of 100. And when the reassessment happens, there might be a shift in value. The town might be more valuable, so now they have a shift maybe in county taxes or whatever. But it's not the going to 100%, it's the equity that's been within that town that shifts. And so, for some reason, they focus on the 100%, not the equity. And the equity is what's important for taxpayers.
Any other questions?
So here's our website. Here's our main number and my email address. I've also included Scott's. He is the first point of contact, but certainly feel like you could give me a call. I have my my cards here, and I also brought, and I know Sue will have these in her office, pamphlets that might be helpful if you're interested in reading more about fair assessments. These are also on our website. Fair assessments, a guide for property owners. How real property tax works. If you want to get deeper than what I covered. And all of these could be a whole other presentation on their own. The job of the assessor. Understanding the rate. We want to make sure you're not tired when you read this one. And then assessments versus taxes, what's the difference? These are all good pamphlets that were designed for the public. So if you need to take a look, I'll leave these up here too.
Thank you.
All set?
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Not many people want to make the trip up north at 7 o'clock at night, so we
Well,
appreciate
I'm just so
that.
thankful it didn't snow.
You had a great day for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. You're welcome.
Our next presentation is a Parks and Recreation Department overview, and will be made by Recreation Director Matt.
Good evening, Mayor Council. I'll be presenting you an in-depth overview of the Parks and Recreation Department. I've given you hard copies as well so they can follow along.
Is this the same as the,
Yes.
okay.
I'm just going to be trying to give you a little bit more quicker run through. There we go. All right.
I do, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the department has 4 full-time staff members, myself, a clerk, and 2 maintenance workers. My job is to oversee the operation of the department, the facilities and park system, as well as its summer and winter programs. My clerk handles all the office work. She does the scheduling at the Vista Center, the Lockwood Arena. She takes registrations for all of our camps. She also handles and prepares all the monetary transactions for the comptroller's office. And she also does the payroll. Our two maintenance workers, these guys, they're jack of all trades. They do everything. They maintain our facilities, they maintain our parks and playgrounds, and they respond to acts of vandalism all the time, 7 days a week. For instance, we had to respond to eggs being thrown into the slides at kids' game today, so they had to respond to that and clean it up. Nice weather out, so they stay extremely busy. With the spring season coming closer, hopefully I'll be hiring my seasonal staff. I bring on seasonal staff to assist the department with mowing, weed eating, general maintenance. This year we will have a mower, 3 trim crew members. They weed eat and they help our mower out. We have marina workers who assist docking boats and cleaning around the marina. And we also hire recreation leaders who will work in the office at Davisky, work arts and crafts, and coach our sports games. I've provided the numbers for our employees since 2015. There were cuts in 2017 and 2018. But our staff, they're doing their absolute best to maintain what people expect from our department. In regards to parks, there's a number of parks that we oversee. We oversee the Kelly Park, which used to be Hamilton Street Park, Library Park, Grove Street Park, New York Ave Park, Green Belt, including Kids Kingdom, Bajork Park, Monterey Park, and as well as the Maple State Trail. On top of the park system, we also work on ball fields. We help Kiwanis with their baseball and softball fields at Monterey Park. We also design and maintain soccer and football fields at Monterey Park as well for Ogdensburg Pee Wee football and Kiwanis as well. We oversee Peg Levine Field, which is on Champlain Street. The Women's Softball League uses that in the spring, and we try to maintain that during the spring and summer months. And during the spring, Ogdensburg Youth Lacrosse uses it as well. Kiwanis also uses Park Street. They use it for baseball and softball in the spring and soccer in the fall. Manette Park is used by the adult men and women's softball leagues. We try to drag that on a routine basis, so it's ready to use for the softball leagues. And Fowler Martin Field, while it's not considered a city field, we do maintain that property. Kiwanis uses it for soccer in the fall, and youth lacrosse uses it in the spring. Our list of spring and summer and fall mowing is pretty extensive. As you can tell by the list, it takes a full week in order to complete this list. And if we have a day of rain, inclement weather, it just puts us behind. But it literally takes a full week to get all that done. One of the things that kind of gets lost, we always think mowing and weed eating, but trash pickup. We take care of all the trash in the park system. So we make 3 trash runs a week during the spring and summer months. We use that with our seasonal staff as well as our full-timers when needed. During the fall and winter, we're still making trash runs. We just do it weekly. So we still have to maintain that. There's a total of 36 trash cans throughout the city that we have to pick up. And as you can see, the list is right there. One of the other aspects of the Parks Department is our street tree replacement program. This is offered to all city residents. If you have a tree that has been taken down in the right of way in between the street and the sidewalk, you give me a call and we'll put you on the list and we'll put a new tree in for you, free of charge. Last year, we put in 18 trees throughout the city, and National Grid actually helped us out. They came and volunteered for the day and helped our staff put in 18 trees. And it was, I've never seen the trees going as quick as they did that day. Hopefully we're nearing the end of the winter season. Our Parks Department also does snow removal. Our primary focus is the Dubisky Center, the arena, the Ogdensburg Mall, and the parks. And then we spread out, we hit the Maple City Trail and other areas around town. One of the other aspects is barricade support. We provide barricades during the Seaway Festival, the Light Up the Night Parade, the Winter Street Battle that was just held, Memorial Day. We help out with the CGSW racing events. And whenever the Ogdensburg Police Department calls upon us, we help them with barricades as well. Besides barricades, there's a number of other responsibilities that we get called upon. We try to help out our Pride and Beautification Commission. Every spring, summer, we put up the flag banners on Fort State and Patterson Streets and New York Avenue and in the Greenbelt. Last year was the first time we put up the Hometown Heroes banners, and we'll be doing that again this spring as well. All that takes considerable amount of time. It takes help from DPW in order to make that happen. During the winter, we put up snowflakes on Ford and State Streets and the Christmas lights up at City Hall and the Greenbelt and the Dubisky Center prior to the Light of the Night Parade. Some of our other responsibilities are putting the flags at half-mast during emergencies and when it's called upon by the President and the Governor. And we also help out the Tree Commission when needed, especially during the Arbor Day ceremony, which usually involves the planting of a tree. So we go from the parks and we take a look at some of the facilities that we run and operate. We operate the Dubisky Center. The Parks Department runs out of the Dubisky Center. That's where my office is. That's where all the signups are taken. The building is rented out for a wide variety of events such as birthday parties, weddings, wedding receptions. We even had proms there. The building is staffed 7 days a week except for major holidays. During the summer we go, it's staffed from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then during the winter months we scale back and we're only open when there's a meeting or an event going on after 4 p.m. So we're always open 8 to 4. We included a kind of a breakdown of the usage for the Dubisky Center for 2019. The large room, we rented just over 271 hours. Smaller room, 100. Both rooms combined, we rented out 71.5 hours, and nonprofits used the rooms over 1,200 hours of the year. Probably one of the bigger facilities that we operate, still going on right now, is Lockwood Arena. This past fall, we put the ice in on October 14th. That's when we opened it up for rentals. It's been a long, steady winter, and it's been extremely productive. We give priority to our local groups, minor hockey and figure skating clubs, prior to filling up any open slots. And we worked with them to come up with our closing date for the year. Our closing date's gonna be March 22nd, Sunday, March 22nd. That'll be their last day of rental. We hired 4 part-time Zamboni drivers for the season, but only one is on at a time. There's only one. The department operates public skating, rock and skates, birthday parties throughout the winter. We try to hold public skating as much as possible. The last 2 years, we've held it on Mondays and Fridays from 2:30 to 4:30, and then Sundays from 12 to 2 p.m. to try to, make it available to everybody. We try to put it on our Facebook page. We try to send it out to all the media outlets so it's out there in the public so people know about it. And I think it does get out there pretty well. And we also hold open skate from 9 to 11 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's open to anybody.
Is there a large attendance for that?
For the open skate, 4 or 5 people. Usually older people, because they don't like to skate around with kids. But it's attended.
Your rock and skate, that does very good though, right?
Yes, and so pretty much every Saturday night, we host rock and skates. Outside groups will actually come, they'll rent the ice. So they're actually, renting the ice, they're giving us however much money for the 3 hours. And they use it as fundraisers. We're still getting our money, they're making some money, so we're kind of giving back to the community.
Yeah.
And they're packed,
Yeah.
They're very well received. The rates, they went up this past fall. They went up $1.50. That's part of the rec commission's plan. They came forward with a 5-year proposal to raise it every $1.50 for the next 5 years. So next fall it'll go up another $1.50, and it's still lower than the rest of the rinks around the county. So eventually we'll start getting up to the kind of the same rate as the other municipal arenas. Our non-ice season at the Lockwood starts as soon as the ice goes out. Usually takes us a week and a half to get the ice out, get the floor cleaned up, and then we're starting to rent. We have an indoor soccer tournament that's going to be held in April. We have Ogdensburg Youth Lacrosse coming in to use it. They use it almost every day during the week. So we try to get as much usage out of it as possible. We work with the chamber. The chamber holds its Oktoberfest and beer, food and wine events there. And we also use it for hockey, gymnastics, and cheerleading summer camps. The rates are $40 an hour, $20 for youth groups, very reasonable. And there's a day rental of $400. So one of my favorite facilities is the pool. It's also the toughest around. We're going to be starting that up. We're going to start working with Department of Health in a short period of time. It's slated to open the 3rd Saturday of June, so it'll be June 20th. We'll begin working on the cleaning, the preparation, the painting in mid-May. As soon as we start getting our seasonal workers in, we got to start the cleaning process. It's extensive, takes a lot of time. So we hire between 22 and 28 high school and college students, and we need that many because we go through that list multiple times in order to just to fill a shift. Kids are busy these days. They're playing in soccer leagues and basketball leagues. We need to hire that many in order to kind of fill our lifeguard chairs. Our college kids are going to be our head lifeguards. A head lifeguard has to be 18 years of age, and they have to have at least 2 years of experience at the city pool. So that, I know in the past, I've heard stuff about funding. That's the reason why we closed the pool down early. It's all head guards. When the kids go back to school and we lose all of our head guards, we can't be open. And so what I try to do is I try to schedule as long as I can when I have those head guards. And once I lose them, that's when we have to close up for the summer. The hiring policy changed a number of years ago. We were able to hire adults that could work at the pool. We had 30-year-old adults working at the pool that had been there for 12, 13 years. And they changed it a number of years ago to make it only college and high school students. Counselor Scamperly, I think you were here for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Try to make it fair for the,
Well, we're trying to put youth to work and at the same time, keep it within a budget. Sometimes when people get that many years and a pay raise every
but
year.
back then, we were able to stay open later. We
Right.
could stay open to Labor Day because we had those adults. And once we weren't able to hire them, that hurt us as well. So. The admission was raised in 2017 to $1 for youth and $2 for adults. But for the past 3 years, PepsiCo Ogdensburg Bottlers has made a donation to the city, making it free for all to attend. That will be continuing this year as well. So I'd like to thank PepsiCo Ogdensburg Bottlers in a public forum.
Yeah, you're hearing this for the first time right now, so
Yes,
thank you very much.
I just got to confirm. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
So Matt, a question,
Yes.
just as we're on that subject, is it worth it, do you think, to have some adults and then carry on the season longer, or does it cost too much?
We'd have to change the policy.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you, now that we've got a couple years under our belt, if you're looking at money, is it worth it, do you think? And you don't have to answer that now if you're not sure, but
I don't know.
it's a
I'm
good
not
question,
sure.
I think.
Well, we haven't, since it's been free, we haven't been keeping attendance. As you can see for the next slide, the pool attendance numbers.
Okay.
What I've done is, in the past, we've either had a recreation leader taking money, or we've had the head guard taking money. We pulled the head guard out of the office, so there's another set of eyes out on the pool deck. So the safety is elevated. That's the reason why I haven't been keeping attendance. I've been trying to kind of focus on having another set of eyes out there at the pool.
How many lifeguards are on duty a day?
There's 5. There's a head guard and 4 lifeguards
At the same time,
at the same time.
right.
We have
How
one
many do we use for swimming lessons in the mornings?
It ranges between 7 and 8.
In addition to the 5 per day, or do
No.
some of those transition
Those are-
over?
Some stay, they'll work their swimming lessons, then they'll work a couple more hours, and then the next shift, the lifeguards are coming.
Okay.
We don't go over that 40 hours.
How many head lifeguards?
It all depends. Some years we could have 10 or 12. Last year we were low. I think we only had 8.
Are all the swimming instructors, water safety instructors?
Yes.
He used to be a lifeguard, you know.
Couldn't
You
you?
can hire him.
I mean, to
Yeah.
stay going longer, like, there's a lot of, I know you say college students to be the head lifeguard, but if they've been on for like, also 2 years or 3 years, they work OFA pool and.
OFA is a little different. They don't have a head guard system over there.
No, but I'm saying to stay open, like other pools in St. Lawrence County or wherever, do they have to have a head lifeguard that's a college student?
Well, they have to be 18 or at least, and have 2 years of experience at the pool. So for the most part, that makes them a college student, especially here in Ogdensburg.
You want to come out of retirement?
Well, no, it just seems like, you may have somebody that went to college that, came back 4 years later, they're here, they're capable of doing it, they may still have their certifications,
But are they currently a college student?
Because right now,
That's the catch.
Right now,
Yeah.
the policy is you have
Right.
to be a college or high school.
Right.
If we change that, I'm sure we could get some. I'm sure we could.
I think it should be open till Labor Day,
Yeah,
I think it's a
that'd be
shame.
nice.
That's some of the best weather.
Sometimes.
no,
It's something we can look at. Any other questions about the pool? We also, besides open swimming and swim lessons, we also provide early bird adult swim. infant toddler swim, and we also offer the ability for pool parties. We started that several years ago, and it does work. We offer it from 10 a.m. to noon on the weekends. And we bring 4 lifeguards in, and people are able to bring as many kids as they can to the pool party, and they're pretty popular. We work extremely close with the New York State Department of Health. We have to follow all the rules and protocols as dictated by the New York State Sanitary Code. As I said, lifeguards must have up-to-date lifeguard CPR, first aid certifications. They have to be approved by the Department of Health before they can lifeguard. We provide an annual pool safety plan to the Department of Health as well, and that has to be approved before we get the pool permit this one. They provide, the Department of Health routinely inspects the pool for infractions, and staff are there to assist the state agency with their inspection. Last year they came, and for the past 9 years, they've only came once. Last year they came twice. I think they're hitting all the beaches and the pools a lot more now. So spring's approaching, and here comes the boating season. Boating season begins at the city marina from May 1st to October 1st. That's when we turn the power off. In 2019, we had 28 boats on the power and 25 boats on the non-power side. We had 6 slips designated as transients, but several were too small to fit most boats, just because some of these boats are just are big and they're taking up a lot of space. Renewal letters have been sent out to the 2019 boaters. They're sent out January 10th, and they have until March 20th to renew their slips for the year. Any available slips will be filled from the resident and non-resident waiting list, a policy that was adopted in 2018. One of the things that we'd like to do is, I've met with the Rec Commission. They're working on a policy right now to possibly offer jet skis at the marina as well, to take up those slips that we can't be filled by a boat. It's a way to fill up the marina, number one, and number two, increase revenues as well. The policy that they're looking at would be $300 for the season for a jet ski. And it all depends on how we fill it this upcoming spring as to how many potential slips would be available for jet skis. So I will be presenting a resolution in the near future for that, to try to get that moving.
Now, in the marina, like, when you see somebody that's, they're very rich, because maybe they drive a fancy vehicle, right? Like a Lincoln or something, could we charge them more? I'm just kidding. Go on.
Oh, Mayor.
I like teasing about her Lincoln.
We do charge non-residents more than residents.
Mm-hmm.
They get charged $3 more a foot.
Mm-hmm.
Besides talked about the facilities, now we're going into our programs. We just finished up our fall and winter programs for the season. We offer gymnastics at Kennedy School and biddy basketball and family swim at OFA. They're extremely popular. For the past 2 years, the Freddie Basketball Committee, they've paid for all the entrance in biddy basketball, so it's been free. And surprisingly, there's less sign-ups during those times than there were before. Don't ask me why. But the next slide, it shows the numbers. Usually stays right in that ballpark. During the summer, we offer our summer sports camps as well. We offer track, gymnastics, soccer, cheerleading, lacrosse, basketball, baseball, and hockey. Typically, we try to get the coaches at OFA to work these camps. If they're not able to, then we use our own recreation leaders. We try to find kids that either played it, have an interest in coaching in the future. We have them run the camps, and it's usually it works out pretty well. It really does. And here are the numbers for the past 3 years. It's right around 400. That does include swimming lessons and infant toddlers. We do include that as the summer sport camp. We also run a year-long toddler craft program. We're taking a little break right now, but it's typically every Thursday from 11 a.m. to noon at the Diversity Center. It's free of charge. At one point, we were having 14 to 18 toddlers show up. It was great. Run around, causing mayhem. During the summer, we run a month-long arts and crafts program in the parks. Tuesdays at South Grove Street, Wednesdays at Kelly Park, and Thursdays we hold it right down at the Diversity Center. And those programs are free. Besides our programs, we hold events and projects. Last year, we started up the Kelly Cleanup Day, and we'll be continuing that this year as well. For 2 years, we held a summer kickoff party in Library Park, and this year we'll be incorporating that as part of the Major League Fishing 3-day festival. So we're really excited about that. We hold rock and skates, and we hold a skate with Santa at the arena every December, which is extremely popular. For the past 9 years, we've also hosted the annual St. Bart Classic Fishing Derby. The derby is to highlight the fishers of the St. Lawrence River. When I first started that, we had like 56 entries. Now we're up to 136 last year, but we got all the way up to almost 190 several years ago. All the registration fees collected go back to the winning anglers. The city doesn't keep a dime for that. The youth division prizes are sponsored by the family of late El O'Mara. And in the past, we've had sponsors in Hazardous Marina, the Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, and Dirty Greenville. I'm almost done, I promise.
No, it's enlightening.
So this, oh, I don't know what I did there. Great. Okay, there. So, as you may have seen in the newspaper, and recently here at the council meeting, we will be hosting a Major League Fishing event, June 26th to July 1st. We will be providing a 3-day festival down here in Library Park and in the Greenbelt. We're calling it the Greenbelt Bass Bash. Can't believe I said that without screwing it up. It's getting exciting. We've got entertainment booked. Councilor Kennedy's on the committee, and we're working extremely hard to get everything ready for that. And it's really a great opportunity to kind of showcase Ogdensburg, showcase the St. Lawrence River, and hopefully these guys will come back in the future. And I think that's good. Just click the mouse, okay. And my last slide is the revenues. So, for 2020, our projected revenues are the following: the Diversity Center and our summer and winter programs, $18,000. Lockwood Arena, $52,500. The also Lexic Pool, $6,400, and the Municipal Marina at $42,500 for a total of $119,400. Does anybody have any questions? Hopefully I didn't speed through it.
According to this year's budget, are you at full staff?
Yes.
Other than summer help right now?
Yes.
Okay. And you've lost how many in the last 5 years?
Full-timers?
Mhm.
I've lost 2 full-timers, and I've lost 3,
I think 5
I've lost
part-timers.
5 summer help.
Mhm.
I used to have 2 part-time mowers that were separate from the kids who would just mow. Now they're part of that, so.
Which is good, because you do the same with less. we gotta go.
We do our best, we try to prioritize,
Yeah.
and some things don't get done. And we try to do our best to make sure everything gets done in a timely manner. Anything else?
I know my little guy, he loves the basketball, the rock and skate, the track. Yeah, he has a good time at those activities.
What I like about our summer camps, they're affordable. They're affordable compared to, some people can't send their kid to a $300 camp at SLU or Clarkson, but for $25 for 2 hours a day throughout the week, it's fairly inexpensive, and it's gets the kids active and participating in sport.
Well, it's nice too that there's family rates offered as well
Yes.
too, so that way even everybody has the opportunity to use this. And I think this is one of the things that makes Ogdensburg shine as far as what we have to offer our community is a lot of these programs that, you don't see smaller towns and villages that they can offer this. They do offer, but maybe on a smaller scale. We aren't just attracting kids from the Ogdensburg area for these camps. There are kids who come in and they do, and they come and they go to these camps.
Yeah.
And of all these kids that are at our camps, their parents are going to Price Chopper, they're running to Walmart, or, they're getting their car washed, or, or they're utilizing our waterfront.
And maybe at one of our bars.
That too.
Just-
I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not just, purely a revenue for the city, but it does bring in some people who might come in 5 days a week or 4 days a week now that they normally would come to Ogdensburg once a week. It just brings traffic into the city.
And it is affordable, but when I'm short on money, I just ask Nicole. She loans it to me, I pay her back when I can.
But I think that, we voted on to hire some summer help, and I just implore everyone to really think of the youth of the city and to go forward with opening this hiring freeze up so that way we can get some lifeguards and seasonal help, and hopefully by getting our mowers and trim crew, we can have time to make sure they're properly trained so we can avoid some of the issues we've had in the past and things like that with, people complaining about the way they're mowed into the road or they're mowed onto other people's property, and hopefully we can mitigate some of that as well.
Those complaints have went way down over the last couple of years.
Well, it's time. We've had hiring freeze, but
I think this is
it's coming
nice.
in the summer, and so it would be time to.
Well, also the intent of the hiring freeze wasn't to not have lifeguards or part-time summer help.
Yeah.
It was framed that way and recorded that way. So that's not true. And I support the record. So it wasn't the intent.
Thanks, Matt. This was really
Yeah,
well put
thanks, Matt.
together.
Thank you.
Let's see. We have no public hearings tonight, so that will bring us to personal appearance. If anyone would like to address the council, please come down to the microphone, and you have 5 minutes. Longer probably, we gotta go. Would anybody care to come down? Anyone? That brings us to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
We have none.
None. Okay. Consent agenda. Next, we have a consent agenda. That is the claims as enumerated in the general fund warrant number 05-2020 in the amount of $671,095.35. And library warrant number 05-2020 in the amount of $3,581.44. And capital fund warrant number 05-2020 in the amount of $22,753. And community development fund warrant number 05-2020 with $0 amount. And community renewal fund warrant number 05-2020 in the amount of $0. as audited be and same hereby are ordered to be paid. I so move.
Second.
And
Just call it roll.
please call the roll.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly.
Yes.
Approved.
And that brings us to appointments. We have no appointments tonight. And that brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by City Manager Sarah Purdy.
Thank you, Mayor. A resolution supporting the continued operation of Ogdensburg's and Governor's state correctional facilities. Whereas the city of Ogdensburg and St. Lawrence County have had a long history of seeking, welcoming, and supporting New York State correctional facilities, and whereas this support of the New York State correctional system enabled the state of New York to find locations for its facilities at times when other communities were not willing to accept these facilities. And whereas the New York State correctional facilities in Ogdensburg and in Governor continue to enjoy unmatched support not only from our local communities, but also from the greater St. Lawrence County and North Country regions. And whereas the New York State correctional facilities in Ogdensburg and Governor have distinguished themselves for decades due to the safety, efficiency, and overall high standards of their operation. And whereas the three correctional facilities combined provide close to $100 million in payroll and provide for approximately 1,000 jobs that help to improve the quality of life in northern New York. And whereas the employees of these correctional facilities reside in Ogdensburg and throughout the North Country, make purchases here, and support our local businesses, hospitals, and schools, thereby contributing to the local economy and making our region a better place to live and raise a family. And whereas other areas of the state offer more opportunity for the adaptive reuse of closed facilities due to higher property values and more robust environments for commercial activity. And whereas such facilities in more expensive areas of the state have historically been easier to redevelop, in so doing adding to the tax base and economic vitality of the state. And whereas there are already 500,000 square feet of vacant state-owned buildings in Ogdensburg, which were formerly part of the St. Lawrence Psychiatric Center. And whereas these abandoned and unused buildings are clear demonstrations of the difficulty in repurposing closed state facilities in this area. And whereas the loss of jobs and payroll at any of the Ogdensburg or Governor correctional facilities would be a devastating blow to what is already one of the most economically distressed areas of New York State. And whereas the operation of New York State correctional facilities in Ogdensburg and Governor has been beneficial to these communities, to St. Lawrence County, and to New York State, now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council strongly supports the continued operation of the Ogdensburg, Riverview, and Governor correctional facilities, and urges New York State to support keeping these facilities open. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo, New York State Senators Ritchie, Griffo, and Little, New York State Assembly Members Walczak, Black, and Bush, Jones, and Smolin, U.S. Representative Stefanik, and U.S. Senators Schumer and Gillibrand.
So moved.
Second.
Kathy, would you take roll?
I'm going to ask her to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of touch tonight. Is there any discussion?
Well, it's nice to have these prisons here for
Yes.
jobs. You know, this is kind of like a nice thank you to the governor for keeping these prisons open, and
Yes.
hopefully keep it that way to provide us with some jobs here in the county. I think that when they were going to close Ogdensburg Prison, I think it was like $20 million a year that's brought into the community in the county basically, and tax and spending and things like that because of these prisons. Yeah, and so it's very important not only to our city, but surrounding area and the county as a whole. Got a couple county gentlemen here tonight, so it's a good resolution.
It was great insight, you know, when they first talked about bringing them here, a lot of people didn't want them, you know, it wasn't in, but now every community would love to have them, but there was a stigmatism back then, and all the, you know, the people before us had the insight to see how that would benefit our community, and it has, and other communities around Ogdensburg, and we're lucky to have them, and I think it is a good resolution to show appreciation for all three of them.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Anyone? Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yeah.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Approved.
Let's see, our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My resolution isn't quite as long. It's the resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a New York State Archives Local Government Records Management Improvement Fund Shared Services application. Whereas the Local Government Records Management Improvement Fund, LGRMIF grant program provides funds to help local governments establish records management programs or develop new program components. And whereas New York State Archives is accepting applications to the 2020-2021 LGRMIF program through March 13th, 2020. And whereas the City of Ogdensburg is eligible to apply for up to $150,000 under a shared service project, of which 100% is grant funded with no local match requirements. And whereas the City of Ogdensburg, in partnership with the Ogdensburg Growth Fund and Ogdensburg Land Bank, propose a shared service application to conduct a comprehensive inventory of all records, a needs assessment and records management plan, as well as a plan to centralize, secure, and organize inactive and permanent records to improve access and identify records for regular disposition. And whereas the city, having the most records and the greatest needs among the application partners, will act as the lead applicant and fiscal agent for the project implementation if grant funding is awarded. And whereas pursuant to LGRMIF guidelines, it is necessary that the lead agency formally appoint a records management officer, RMO, and formally adopt the appropriate records retention and disposal schedule, which the city has done in 1989. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council hereby authorizes the city manager or her designee to submit a 2020-2021 LGRMIF shared services application and to enter into and execute any and all necessary grant agreements and contracts required of the lead agency applicants.
So moved.
Second.
Is there further discussion?
I think anytime we can apply for a grant and there's no local matches required, we'd be crazy to not jump on that. So thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly?
Yes?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Sarah.
Actually, we'll turn that over to Andrea.
Oh.
Let me flip to my right page. This is a resolution calling for a public hearing. A resolution of the City Council to provide for public notice and public hearings. Whereas the Ogdensburg City Council is desirous of hearing public comments on Ogdensburg's current Community Development Block Grant CDBG project, 2017 flood impact improvements, project number 836IT202-17, in the amount of $500,000. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council shall hold a public hearing for the purpose of hearing public comments on the city's CDBG imminent threat project to be held in the City Council chambers at City Hall, Ogdensburg, New York, on the 23rd day of March at 7 p.m. Be it further resolved that the city clerk give notice of such public hearing by publication in the newspaper so designated by the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg for legal and public notices at least 10 days before the hearing date, setting forth the time and place and publishing the attached legal notice, which I provided to you, which is a requirement of the funding agency.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion?
So is this for, like, the public to comment on the stuff that's done?
Yes, it's a requirement. It's the second public hearing. We had a public hearing, well, this is really the third public hearing. There was a public hearing on the submission and a public hearing on what we would do, and this is the final public hearing to accept comments on what has been done, and it's a requirement to close out the grant.
Will the public get to know what's been done? To come?
I'd be happy to give an introduction at the next meeting before opening the public hearing or after opening the public hearing, however the council so chooses.
Because some people might not remember what the actual projects were.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And if you come to a public hearing to speak, you don't really know what you're going to speak about. You don't remember.
Yes, although legal notice does provide some detail on that, but it was back in October of 2017, so it's been a few years.
Any further discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Sarah. Am I right on that one?
You are very right on that one, thank you.
Okay.
Resolution, let's see, except I messed them up. Got too far ahead of myself. Okay. Resolution to authorize the expenditure of funds for summer help positions. Whereas the Parks and Recreation Department and the Department of Public Works are in need of summer help in order to carry out departmental programs and responsibilities, and whereas the departments need to start recruiting now for these summer positions, and whereas the attached spreadsheet explains the positions, programs, responsibilities of these positions, and the consequences of not filling these positions, and whereas the funds for these positions are included in the 2020 General Fund, Sewer Fund, and Water Fund budgets, now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council hereby authorizes the expenditure of the funds budgeted for the summer help positions in the Parks and Recreation Department and in the Department of Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Kathy, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Approved.
And this brings us to old business.
I think you got one more.
Oh, I do?
For the city,
Yeah.
county mayor.
Oh, yes, I missed that. Okay, this item will be read by City Manager Sarah Purdy.
Thank you. Resolution to appoint a city attorney for the city of Ogdensburg. Whereas the city of Ogdensburg has recruited for the contractual position of city attorney, and whereas Scott B. Goldie of Conboy, McKay, Bachman, and Kendall LLP is qualified to serve as city attorney, now therefore be it resolved that Scott B. Goldie is hereby appointed effective immediately to serve as city attorney pursuant to the city charter, administrative regulations, and the code of the city of Ogdensburg, and all other state and federal laws as may apply.
Moved, so moved.
Second.
I'll third it. Discussion, I'd like to start with, I know Scott, he's very intelligent, hardworking. I think he'll do a great job for our city, and glad to see that we got him.
I think we've got a backlog and we need to get rolling, so this is great to get this hopefully push forward tonight and keep moving forward, because
I think we're really gonna need a lawyer going forward, you know? Okay, so, any more discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Approved.
And this brings us to old business, which I got a little excited about because I'd like to bring up the Dubisky Center again, and the idea of possibly leasing it out to a business that could run in the marina and the restaurant. We were down there for some meetings. It is just a beautiful commercial kitchen. The public area can stay. There's still enough space for that. I could just picture a nice bar area, tables, seating outside, tables outside, inside, citizens enjoying it, and people from off the river enjoying that, the Dubisky Center. The benefits of not having expenses of people in the building at nights and weekends, and just a lot of reduced costs and then additional revenue. So I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on it, but I think it could be real beneficial.
What are your thoughts moving forward on how to create more, like to bring your idea, like to have something more concrete, like
Yeah.
any ideas going, how to, oh, Sarah's shaking her pencil at me.
Well, why don't we let the mayor go first, and then I'll tell you what the staff has started working on.
Okay.
Yes, the staff has a lot of work because it's a park, you know, we do ideas and they do work. But it is a park, and they've got to work that out with New York State to be able to do this. My thoughts partially are, we did put a commercial kitchen in to lease it out, so it follows that line, in my thoughts. But the staff would have that work to do. And if we could get that all resolved and a good agreement, if we choose, to come out, say, by October, then we could put it out for bids, hopefully someone local, get everything resolved by the end of December, let them take the building from January to April, do their renovations, get the property in order for themselves, and April 1st, it becomes theirs to run. Anybody else? Good, bad?
I just had a question. Not that, I don't think it's a bad idea by any, but I'm just wondering, because do we need to have like some type of like public forum for this idea to be discussed, or something like that with some public, I'm just curious. I want to make
Well,
sure
you will
that,
have to have a public hearing.
I want to make sure that everything
And
is
we've
just.
got to get state legislation.
Yeah.
So, what we've started looking at is, you all got a memo from me with your last agenda, sort of briefly running through the alienation issues. So what we're starting with now is the checklist in the New York State Alienation Guide, which asks 10 questions. And the research shows that because EQBA, Environmental Quality Bond Action Act funding was used to build Dubisky, we are going to have to go through alienation and also substitution. So, which means we would have to find the same square footage of space and add it to our inventory of parks. It cannot be an existing park, it's got to be a new one that we create. So what I want to do, I can't promise you that I'll have it for the next meeting. It might be the one after, but certainly by the one after, if not sooner. We're going to do the best we can to draft the answers to the 10 items on the checklist and then bring that to you for further discussion, because there's going to be some decisions you have to make about spending some money in order to complete the alienation requests, so to speak. So we've started working on it, and we'll get it to you as soon as we can.
Even though we are able to keep that public area, the little public kitchen in that area, and even though the restaurant and seating area is open to the public, it still could be an issue?
It's because of the use of the EQBA funds. We're also researching right now, there is some indication that federal funds were also used, in which case we've got to go through a similar process, which is called conversion at the federal level. But I'm still trying to pin down whether we did actually use federal funds. If we didn't, it would be a little bit easier.
Does it work like 2 for 1? Like like when either the Lockwood Arena or the Davisky Center was built, some lands that were given to the state as parks. I think one of them was the old button factory off of the dock entrance. So that's been given up, and they say it can't be removed in order to be resold. And if the Davisky Center is, at one time, they wanted to have like a small museum inside it, and the state wouldn't even allow that.
Right.
So this is like a super long stretch to basically a lot of work, and you couldn't even have a museum and artifacts of Ogdensburg in it.
Yeah, but, as I said at the last meeting, we're willing to undertake the effort to see how far we can get with it. But you do bring up a good point. They wouldn't allow a museum, so.
Anyone else?
I personally like to see this run up a restaurant. But I've been told people were interested, but there's only a 2-year contract. If somebody wants to go in there, you gotta give them a 5-year option, or a 5-year contract and a 5-year option.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I don't know what the deal is with it, but,
2-year contract and option to,
yeah, you gotta have options.
Yeah,
If somebody's gonna go in there and spend money, they
they're
gotta,
gonna invest in,
yeah.
and it's going well for them.
How many times has it actually been rented out? I mean,
3, 4 maybe, I think, that I know of.
Each season, each time of season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not as a restaurant, as a...
No, we're just talking about the concession.
Concession.
Yeah, we've not been able to get anyone to respond to the RFP in a couple of years.
yeah.
Great
Right?
kitchen.
In the last 5 years.
It's been a long time.
But I was understanding that Wimpy's wanted to lease it, and that would be a good people in there.
They never submitted.
Well, because you only get a 2-year lease, and they wanted a 5-year lease.
I see, okay.
So that's why I'm saying, because I've talked to them, and I
Yeah,
don't know if they still be
Matt,
interested or
I
not,
think-
but
I think Matt wants to,
So I did have a brief discussion with Wimpy's. There was no leasing discussed. It was an extremely brief conversation.
he told me, he asked you, you told him it's only a 2-year lease. That's what he told me. I'm not fighting with you, I'm just saying. But it doesn't matter, if anybody wants it, you gotta give them at least a 5-year and a 5-year. I've been in the restaurant, but you gotta give them time to do it.
I told him everything was negotiated by the city
Yeah.
manager, and we never even talked about leasing timeframes or anything. I showed him the place, and he asked me questions. And
Well, if we do lease it out, we should give somebody a 5-year and plus an option, I think.
that will actually answer one of the questions that's on the checklist, so, thank you.
All right.
Okay, and that brings us to new business. Does anyone have any new business? And that brings us to items for discussion. And the first item for discussion is a comprehensive approach to vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties in Ogdensburg.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind council and mayor that, and members of staff, that the city will be putting together a 2-day training, the title of which is a comprehensive approach to vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties here in Ogdensburg. We will be having several representatives from the National Not-for-Profit Community Center for Community Progress, putting that on along with speakers from across the country who are coming and participating in that. This is fully funded through the city's Zombie Grant Round 2 program. It's 2 days, it includes lunch, and we've asked everybody to register by March 11th. So this is a great opportunity. I was hoping that Councilor Powers would be here because I know that he's very interested in what Brazier Falls is doing in terms of their vacant and abandoned property. And this is a great opportunity to learn about what we were successful in doing with round 1 of our funding that we received in 2017, and what we're doing and hope to do with our round 2 funding. So everything from developing policy regarding strategic code enforcement, working with regional stakeholders, as well as utilizing the land bank to effectively address property abandonment. There's also a course on taxation and assessments. So it should be very interesting, and I'm hoping that several of you all will be able to attend, being that you all adopt the policies that we all comply with. So
Can there be more than 3 from the council?
we just have to advertise it. I mean, it is publicly, and I will work with Kathy to make sure that it gets noticed appropriately. But it is limited in space, but there's plenty of space for all of you to attend.
I've signed up. I can't make the 20th though, unfortunately, since then and I really wanted to do it too, but I had to make some appointments. I'm sorry.
Tom says whenever we want more than 3, he'll come and hang with us from the newspaper, so we can do it.
Right now, we do not have a quorum of council, so it's not an issue, but if we do, I'd be happy to follow the appropriate protocol to follow through the notice.
I'll be going, but one other question, what's for lunch?
When I get the number, then I'll be making the lunch.
It's a pretty, the issue is facing Ogdensburg. We've got a lot of delinquent properties, and it's something of interest. Anybody that's interested in what happens at City Hall really ought to take this into account and moving our city forward, trying to get by these issues of delinquent properties. It sounds like an interesting 2 days.
We've also extended the invitation to several employees at the county level, as well as our county legislators. So, because we do realize that we do need to all collectively work together to address it.
Anybody can go to this though, right? Anybody in the public or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm providing lunch with grant funding, so I don't, unfortunately, I do not have funding to provide everybody with lunch. But we have extended the invitation to a pretty wide range of representatives throughout the county. All departments have been invited to send participants, the council, planning board, zoning board, land bank, county chamber. Again, there's county staff that's been invited. It's been an extensive list, but we are hoping to keep it to about 40 participants.
Anything else? The second item for discussion is sales tax.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. So, sales tax. Does anybody have anything to say about our sales tax issue with the county legislature?
Did you want Tim to give his presentation?
No.
Okay.
Anybody want to say anything about?
So the issue itself, of course, is the county wants to renegotiate a 10-year contract that's due in November, and I think we have to negotiate by May or June.
Yes.
Is the hopes here. And so there's been some discussion, and we don't seem to be getting too far.
No, nope, not getting very far at all.
No.
But it's hard to really, I've only been to one negotiation, and so I'm not a professional at negotiating, but it was very hard for me as mayor representing Ogdensburg to get my head around the proposal of $11 million over 10 years from the city on nothing factual, no numbers, no data, just assumptions. One assumption is New York State may take and put more financial responsibility on the county. Another legislator claims that he can work census in his head and can tell our population is down. And another says our sales tax is down. But the county, the city, the state, no one knows who's collecting sales tax or the amount to separate them. Another county legislator, he was upset that we have a nice football field and thought that was a concern to him in our sales tax issue, which...
So the issue at hand for the public, Mayor, if you don't mind me interrupting you just for a moment, is there was a contract negotiated 10 years ago.
Yep.
And they averaged, I believe at the time, the sales tax collected in Ogdensburg of the previous 10 years, and they came up with a figure of kind of an average of what Ogdensburg is, 6 point something.
Yep.
And at the moment, there's apparently a movement in the county that the contract is up to reduce that figure for the city of Ogdensburg. And it's my understanding that there's several different avenues or attempts, possibilities of reducing that number.
Yep.
And so now you can take it.
It was, again, I thought in negotiations that each party would bring like some facts for their basis of why they're presenting an amount. And that did not happen over there. Going back to the original negotiations, the county, from my understanding, asked Ogdensburg to merge with them. And they asked Ogdensburg to also increase sales tax from 7 cents to 8 cents because they were in dire financial situation, worse than Ogdensburg, possibly. And of course now, rather than collecting 3 cents, they collect 4 cents because Ogdensburg supported that. So they increased by 25% their sales tax. And now they claim that it was just their good management that has put them in a situation of having $24 million in a fund. So to take $11 million, from our economy to add to their $24 million piggy bank is something more like, I just wouldn't picture this from our own county because it's going to devastate our economy. It's going to take a lot of money, a lot of capital out of our people to afford the things they need. And when you take that money to just add to a $24 million bank account, how does that benefit the county as a whole and the economy? And it's so funny because one of these representatives represents one car dealership and another representative represents 2 car dealerships. And I wonder how that's going to work out for these 3 car dealerships when you force Ogdensburg to raise their tax rate. So not only do you get $11 million over 10 years of sales tax, as we raise our assessment and we reach our legal limit, and now we have to go into to assessments, then it's just more of a windfall for the county as they get $10 per thousand of our money. But it's a death spiral for our city. That kind of talk is, those numbers are just preposterous on no data at all. No reason. Anyone else?
So there's been some different possibilities that have been thrown on a table. One of the possibilities, as I understand it, is about $1.9 million a year. I can't even fathom when we're sitting on an $11 million budget. Various. Another proposal, $200,000 a year over a period of time. Even that is just, it's going to hurt Ogdensburg. I think Ogdensburg, we've been repositioning ourselves for about the last 10 or 20 years. I feel like we're right on the cusp of moving forward. We're an economic driver between the prisons and between the events that we're hosting and where we've taken off to. I can't imagine why the logic comes to when you only have one city in the county, we're gonna just bury them. We're gonna devastate them, and nothing will happen in Ogdensburg. Ogdensburg would be buried by these numbers, and I don't know where the logic is here when we have so much potential of growing, and that's basically the argument that I presented to the county. I would like to redo the contract as is, as I believe almost every town, if not all, in St. Lawrence County has supported keeping the current tax agreement that we have, and why there's so many representatives that want to go against their towns and villages that have already passed resolutions. Again, that's beyond me. Again, to hurt the partner in economic gain here. And we're creating sales tax revenue, the city of Ogdensburg, and we're going to create more. The event that we're having this summer is going to create, hopefully, a tremendous amount of sales tax for our partners, the county, the towns. And I think we should be thinking in terms of partnership rather than competing with each other for the pie that's there. Let's grow the pie. Let's make it bigger, and by keeping the same agreement and helping each other in helping the city of Ogdensburg get on its feet, something we've been working on for so long. And that's the position that I took when we were sitting in the meetings, and it's the position that I still hold. We shouldn't be competing against each other, but rather, and trying to destroy the city of Ogdensburg, period, but rather see Ogdensburg as perhaps a little gem that will grow and create more sales tax for everybody.
I'm also surprised at the lack of acknowledgement of the commitment and the investment we're putting into our wastewater treatment. A wastewater treatment that keeps those prisons viable, a psychiatric center viable, a sex offenders viable, an industrial park. I mean, this is the engine of job creation in our whole area. Not just Ogdensburg, but Lisbon and the town of Oswegatchie too. We're investing in that wastewater to expand over to Uvalton, making it larger than we need for our own capacity. That will allow Lasorda's cheese to stay open. I mean, we all know from our own cheese plant how difficult it is for a wastewater to treat that. And Uvalton's having that issue. And it's coming here, and we're going to treat it here. And that's what Ogdensburg does. That's what the citizens of Ogdensburg do. We give up a large portion of our property is tax exempt. We've gladly done it. We've taken those prisons before anyone ever would even consider one. And we took 2. And those jobs go beyond the city limits. They go to the whole region. And we carry a lot of weight. We carry a lot of weight and for the whole area. And there needs to be fairness. There needs to be fairness in these negotiations. And there needs to be real numbers and reason to take that money. Anyone else?
One of the items that was brought up at one of the meetings that we had, the difference between Ogdensburg and the towns was that Ogdensburg has to make the county whole and the school whole when somebody becomes delinquent on property. That number this past year so far, as I see it, was about $833,000 plus in uncollected taxes just to the county that we have to make the county whole. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And so these are the things that I'm not sure everybody understands when they're negotiating in terms of the county legislators as a whole, if everybody understands these things.
That's a huge additional burden, and that's because we are a city. Towns and villages are excluded from that. We also, we have a Lafayette Street Bridge that is going to require a couple $1 million. The county takes care of all the bridges for the towns and villages, but not for Ogdensburg. We also have an issue with dispatchers. We've paid for our own dispatchers, our own 911, in addition to paying for the counties and our phone bill. And now when we get a recommendation from the state, which we asked for because of our financial situation, it's said by a county legislator that we'll take those dispatchers at our cost. Like a big favor when we've already paid for years and never had that service. We have 30 policemen, I believe, that look out for the safety of our citizens. We don't have a sheriff driving through protecting our citizens at night. I mean, how much do we have to pay to the county in property taxes, sales taxes for what we take back? I mean, let's get data on that. Like, let's get, I would like the data to know how much is taken in from all the taxes on 911 and what it costs for the dispatchers in Canton. Is there more money taken in than the cost? And if there is, well, you're welcome from Ogdensburg for all we've paid in and never taken it. But now is the time. It's a state recommendation for the county to take those 4 dispatchers. I mean, let's put our big boy pants on and provide some services back for all the money we get.
Let me say something here.
Well, you got to wait till
You're not gonna let
citizen participation. You can go out.
Okay. I can go up there now?
No. Well, pretty soon, no. Anything else?
Just Sarah's down there.
Can I say a few things?
Yeah.
Okay. So there have been 3 negotiating sessions. There has been a lot of data given. Sometimes it has not been that easy to figure it out. In the first 2 sessions, there was a lot of back and forthing about a number of different proposals, and not all of those proposals had a consensus among the county members. So it was a little hard to figure out what was up, but there was a fair amount of data that was presented. It may not be data that, from the city's perspective, is appealing, but it was presented. From the city's perspective, it's been a little bit of a head scratcher in terms of questions that were asked that had to do with past history and not necessarily the current agreement that's about to expire. But I would say in retrospect that some of those questions were trying to get at why the city allocates its funding the way it does, and what is the relevance of the sales tax revenue the city gets to the city's operations. Just today, the city staff submitted to the county staff the response to a set of 9 or 10 questions to provide the county with data that I believe will help the county understand the city's perspective a little better. So I'm very hopeful that once all of that data is reviewed and presumably shared with the committee, that we can schedule another session, and there will be a little bit more of a comprehensive understanding on both sides of the table. Clearly, the city is under some pressure, and whether the city, how the city chooses to handle that pressure from the county is not clear, obviously not something that should be discussed openly tonight, but I do know that if in the future, all of us, not just the city and the county, but the city, the county, and the surrounding towns want to embark on some joint projects and want to work on consolidating services, we need to make sure that we go about the sales tax discussions in a manner that does not cause everyone to decide that they don't ever want to talk to anybody from the other side of the table again. So with that said, I will repeat that I'm hopeful that given that there was a set of data presented today to the county, that we'll be able to get back to the table fairly soon and try to maybe have a more direct conversation about what's really at stake here.
It was very diplomatic.
So,
You don't think I will?
No.
I think it's our turn to host.
I worked hard with that, to be diplomatic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes?
say what?
Yes.
Go ahead, Counselor, first.
I think it's definitely a tough issue, but, after just three meetings, maybe the meeting should have been going on long before just having three. But I think the negotiations and all sides could be strictly professional and, really not calling out either side. Because in the end, we've got to come up with some agreement that's hopefully amicable, because we all live in St. Lawrence County. We're better partners than enemies, on either side. So I think a lot of the stuff that's been happening over the last few days just needs to be, reined in a bit, and we sit down and just negotiate in good faith and be professional. That's it.
personally, I just, the support I've seen from the surrounding villages and towns has been towards Ogdensburg, whether they, you know, we had a nice meeting, made the conference at the Mayor's Dinner, the support that we were given from the surrounding towns and villages and how vital this is not only for Ogdensburg, but the impacts that it carries over is much larger than just Ogdensburg. And I think if we take a look at the whole picture, we need this whole area to be profitable. And, you know, some of these towns and villages, they do look to Ogdensburg for things. And I think that, you know, having the support of all of our towns and villages, the majority of the towns and villages, is, it just goes to show how important this is and what sales tax generates throughout these communities. So, that's all I have.
Anything else? Anyone?
No, go ahead. I'm good. I'm getting excited.
Does anyone else have items for discussion? No? And that brings us to citizen participation. If anyone would like to address council, please come down to the microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes.
I'm not going to go into a tirade here. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. I'm going to point out a couple of things. I would point out what the city manager just said, is that if we're going to do negotiations, they should be done in the manner that negotiations are conducted. Not in the newspaper, Mayor. Not in the newspaper. Not in the editorial section. Not letters to the editor. If we're going to negotiate, we should negotiate. One of the tenets of negotiation is that there is a back and forth between the interested parties. So far, there's been no back and forth on the part of the city. The city has brought absolutely nothing to the table as a negotiating point, other than we don't want to see things changed. I think your city manager addressed that here a while ago, that there needs to be something on the part of the city brought forward in a negotiation session. I will tell you just, I don't want to address every single point, but one of the points I will address is the 911 monies that you think the county gets. The county does not and has not taken advantage of the 30 cents, or what I think that's what it is, 30 cents that we could add on to the cell phone bills. We don't do that. We're one of 2 counties in the state that does not levy that tax on cell phone users. Okay, so the money that is levied on cell phone users goes to the state of New York, and they're supposed to split that up equitably with the counties. They don't do that. They keep it, much like they are doing with the AIM money that you are benefiting from. You are getting your AIM money, as are other villages in villages in St. Lawrence County, and the towns are getting it from the state sales tax that comes into St. Lawrence County. It's over $1 million, number one. Number two, we're looking at, you asked for some data. I can't give you data because the state hasn't provided it to us. But the state of New York has said, through the governor, that while they don't want to do it, they're going to end up balancing the Medicaid debacle that the state of New York is in on the backs of the counties. How are they going to do that? There's already talk of removing the cap. Right now, the county of St. Lawrence sends $500,000 a week to the state to pay for Medicaid. Back in the 60s, when the sales tax was enacted, and the state saw in its infinite wisdom to give to the counties the option and the authority to have a 3% sales tax enacted for the sole purpose of paying for Medicaid. That isn't what's happening with it now. Back in the 70s, when a board changed from a board of supervisors to a board of legislators, that board saw fit to take half of the sales tax revenues coming to the county and divide it up with the towns. In addition to that, a few years later, they decided that bridges over 25 feet in St. Lawrence County that are on town roads and in villages the ownership would be deeded over to the counties, and it would be the county's responsibility to maintain and repair and keep in good shape those bridges, which we do. Every year, millions of dollars go into bridges. So some of the unknowns are the Medicaid, which is the big thing. There's another thing that is in the legislature now that calls HALT. And what that is a requirement in that section of the law that says we, the county, would have to build a building, staff it, to pay for people who have a drug problem and are put in solitary confinement, which we don't do here anyway. But we would have to build a building, we'd have to staff it with security, with people that provide the social services to inmates, medical people that would do it. In addition to that, we would have to pay for some continuing services to them once they were out of jail. How much is it going to cost? No idea. No idea at all. But the state says you're going to have a separate building, separate and distinct from your jail to do that, plus you're going to have to staff it. And it's going to be a county cost, and right in the law, it specifies that. It's going to be a county cost. Are we going to have to do it? We don't know if we're going to have to do it or not. We might know when this session of the legislature gets out, but as things are right now, we don't know. There's another thing that's called MAT, medically assisted treatment. And that mandates that the counties will provide any and all medication that is needed to help addicts, people that are, addicted to, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Any medication that's available to them. By the way, you're going to pay for it too. They did a survey of the counties north of New York City and found that just for the medication itself, just to buy the medication, would cost over $72 million. Doesn't count the city of New York or any of those counties, say south of Westchester. How do you plan for that? You can't. But we've got an obligation to be good stewards with the county's money, the county taxpayers' money. We've got an obligation to be forward-looking. And I will tell you that it doesn't take long to spend a $21 or a $24 million fund balance, as you said, down to nothing. We've got the proof in the pudding. Back in 2007, 2008, there was over $21 million in fund balance. And in the newspaper, they were crying the fact that we had so much money in the fund balance. It took 5 years for the legislature over there to spend that down to where in 2015, we had a change in parties who took over. And in 2015, we had a fund balance of a negative $300,000, a negative amount of money. So we took the bull by the horns, we changed things around. Yes, you're absolutely right, that 1% did help, no question about it. And the state, or excuse me, the county according to the law, was actually under no obligation at all to share any of that with anybody. It's in the law, not subject to be distributed or shared with cities, towns, or anybody else. The law does say we've got to negotiate with the city. Like I said, I'm not being brief, but I will be brief from here on out. I think what you've got, if you don't like what's going on over there in negotiating, and it's hardly a negotiating session because there's no back and forth. There is, you got no proof?
Yes.
You have it? My turn.
Yeah.
You got no proof? You got no way of showing what you're gonna need, which we agree to. We don't, it's there. Already, we've seen the AIM money taken right out without any agreement on the part of the counties for this. And you think the state is going to absorb the losses or the money that they're going to need to cover Medicaid, that $6.2 billion hole that they're in? You know where it's going to come from. It's going to come from the county. What are we going to do? We got to raise taxes? If we raise taxes, we got a 2% tax cap. We lose a lot of benefit from the state, okay? Medicaid, if we exceed 3% year to year, we would be responsible for paying the county the excess of anything over 3%. And we have no control over Medicaid at all, at all. So why is this being done? Why is the county looking at some way to increase the revenue that's coming in? Because of all the unknowns that are coming in and all of the costs associated with those unknowns, that some of which we know, at least a little bit, some of which we don't know. So my suggestion to you is this, is that you take a lead from your city manager and sit down and come up with something that you can offer to help us out. Because nobody's helped us out when we were borrowing $12 million a year to just make cash flow. The city didn't come over and say, oh, well, we don't need this, or you can have a little. Or the snowplow people out in the towns didn't say, well, we'll take care of that for a while. Nobody did that. We did it on our own. What did we do? Some drastic measures, unfortunately. But we did what we had to do. I think you need to listen to the city manager. You need to bring something to the table. You need to stop sending newspaper articles to the Watertown Times or anybody else, and sit down at the negotiating table and get it hashed out. You're right, you don't have a lot of time.
You want to question answer each other?
No, I don't think there's any. I mean, I made my presentation. I'm done.
My point is, if this should happen with Medicaid, wouldn't it be right for the county to raise their tax rate, or to everybody, to go to one community and say, this may happen to us? This is why I'm upset as mayor. This may happen to us. So we're going to just one community, Ogdensburg. See, I told you you'd want to do this.
I'm going to do it this once.
Okay.
Okay. City of Ogdensburg in 2010 census lost 10% of their population. Fact. Check it out.
But that
wait, let me, my turn.
Okay.
You had 12,000 blah, blah, blah number of people in the city of Ogdensburg. That got reduced to by 1,200 and some people. This is a census figure. It isn't Joel Lightfoot dreaming up a figure here for you. It's a census figure. You lost 10% of your population. That was prior, that information did not come out during the time that sales tax, the distribution was being negotiated in 2010. I know that because I was on that committee. And I will tell you that had it been noted at that time, because with everybody else, the distribution is based on assessment and population. And you got 10 years of the 6.4% that you probably shouldn't have gotten, nor if we'd have been on our toes at the time, could have gone back and perhaps reopened that to cause a reduction in what you were getting because of the decrease in population you got. So, and don't think that all the towns, that yes, they pass resolutions and those resolutions get reported in the press and whatnot. But don't think that all the towns are, thrilled that Ogdensburg continues to get 6.4% when they don't really think that you deserve it. I'm not saying all of them, but there are some out there that, do say those.
Gentlemen, I think we ought to take Sarah's lead and do this in a different setting.
I've suggested that
right
from the start.
Well, I'm just amazed that at 1,200 people reduction adds up to $11 million, though. That's a lot of money per person. That is a lot.
Right.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, too. I appreciate it.
I guess we're done. We're having fun. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Anyone? Mayor of Governor?
Well, thank you.
Hi, Ron.
I was good enough to give the rules to the legislators. They're not familiar with your rules, but the headline should be, the mayor cuts off a legislative chair. And nevertheless, I came over here just as, I wasn't going to say anything, and then when I came in here a few minutes before the meeting started, and I was basically here to listen based upon some things I read and heard. And the same as I think both legislators, Akers and Lakeford came to do. Well, thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. I'm here not only Ron McDougal, 63 Gleason Street, Governor, New York, 13642. In the rules twice, just in case you forget it the first time. Anyways, and I'm also here representing the St. Lawrence County Conference of Mayors. This, it may be new to, especially the new councilors, but the sales tax issue has been going on for a year, maybe a little more than a year, going back and forth. What was going to happen? Again, came to listen, but unknowns. But this has been, we talk about unknowns, and Medicaid is significant. What are we going to do? The governor's there's a task force that's supposed to carve out a couple of $2 billion out of that. It's actually Medicaid's $4 billion out of the $6.1 billion deficit, and the new team is supposed to be is searching for I think $2.5 billion. That's the so-called bogey or goal on that. So, unknowns. Today of all days, come over here. Unknowns. I've talked to my person, clerk, treasurer, AG, how does today affect us, and we're all going to be affected. I get up this morning and, the markets, we're in a global economy, a global world. There's no question about that. What is going to happen? Since they put the starter or the stopper in the New York Stock Exchange this morning because it was down a couple thousand. Then it came back, the Dow, the main one, and then it came back somewhat, only to about 1,200, and then by the end of the day, it's 2,000. Significant. All three markets down an average of 7% apiece. And just to add to that, with of course the coronavirus 19, add to that the king or prince and a dictator. Meaning Saudi Arabia and Russia get into a kind of one won't answer the phone or something, so the prince takes care of it, and he said we're gonna flood the market, and so oil goes down 25%. Those are significant things, and you talk about unknowns. Can you imagine if things keep on this trend, or if they just even out, what the pension bill is going to be next year for all of us, villages, towns, counties, state? It doesn't matter. These are significant events, and you can't overlook that. The sales tax, obviously, we've talked about and had resolutions to keep it the same. You know, the equalization rate, whatever you want to call it, the math. And incidentally, you know, as Mr. Lightfoot said, you know, nobody helped the legislature. Oh, yes, we did, and it wasn't 25%. We all worked together, the county, the town, and the villages, to lobby our 3 fiscally conservative senators to go from 3% to 4%. That's 33 1/3, not 25. I'm not correcting you on the math or whatever, but that's a fact.
Yeah.
That's what we did. That's how they have 24 million in the kitty, so to speak. Now, how long they're going to have it, I don't know. I don't know how long any of us are going to have fund balances if this keeps on. We'll all have to make cuts. So basically, you understand that when the economy's up, we understand that everybody under the current system gets a little more. The economy's been good the past couple of years, past 3 years, you know, 4 years, whatever far you want to go. It's been pretty good. So we get a little more sales taxes. Ours is up a little bit, the county's is up, you know, city. When it goes down, we expect it, well, things aren't so good. That's really what we're talking about, is fairness. Now, as you know, there have been many plans. The chair of the legislature made a trip to the town supervisor, or the chair of the town supervisor association, and with a plan, I think it was 8, Joe, 8 different versions, plus some of these unknowns in there, you know, that we all got unknowns. And then, you know, because at first when this started out, you know, they've been working very hard on it. The legislature and the staff has been working very, very hard to take sales tax away from the rest of us, town, villages, and particularly the city of Ogdensburg now. So, you know, a lot of people think, well, it's divide and conquer, you know, but I don't know what to call it, but I will say one thing. At the December 5th meeting, a joint meeting between the St. Louis County Supervisors Association and the Mayor's Association, we unanimously agreed to a resolution to keep things the way they are now. Presently, it's a 10-year agreement that we're talking about. And again, the towns reaffirmed that in Potsdam on the 25th of February, and then the Mayor's Association, we just reaffirmed our position, same position, just down the street here in Augsburg last Thursday. So, you know, I appreciate everybody's position, but, you know, we worked hard, towns and villages and the county partnered up. Okay, let's raise the sales tax. You know, we use strategies, what are other counties doing, you know, to go from 7 to 8 or 3 to 4. But I can tell you, for those that were involved in those lobbying sessions, it was tough for these legislators to do that. Maybe tougher for, particularly with the 3 senators. But there was a plan put together, never foreseen. You know, that was then, we were all together, and now we don't seem to be together. Hopefully before this is all over, we can remain friends. You know, Joe and I go back and forth, other people go back and forth, we enjoy it, you know, we actually like each other. A lot of people don't realize that, but you know, and, but you know, that's all we're asking for is fairness. And, but on the other hand, you know, what's on the table, from what I read and hear, is really asking quite a bit. And I really think, based upon the mayors and based upon the supervisors, we should keep things the way they are now. Thank you for your time and consideration. Are you going to put me on the hot seat like you did him, or not?
No, I just thank you. But well, quickly, would anyone like to ask the mayor a question, or?
I don't think it's appropriate. I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks to the mayor and the councilors as well.
I'd like to adjourn.
Sure.
So I'm Kevin Akers, the county legislator that represents Madrid, 194 Brandy Brook Road, Madrid, New York. I'm the finance chair, and I'm also a member of the 5-member sales tax team. We have met with Sarah twice, and the comptroller, and the Mayor Skelly, and Mr. Scamparelli.
Yeah, of course.
So first of all, conducting business on Facebook is unprofessional. I'm not on Facebook. Joe's not on Facebook. Dave Forsythe's not on Facebook. But it makes you look unprofessional. That's the first thing. The $24 million that we have in our fund balance was earned. I was the last legislator in 2013, I think, when sales tax came in. I sat right over here in this room with Patty Ritchie and Fred Morrill. And Fred Morrill presented a 5-year plan, and Senator Ritchie did not want to go forward and wanted to go through the county books. I was the last legislator to go for it. It was 14-1. I decided to go for it. It was the way to go. And when we did that, raised the sales tax 1%. What we also did, and you're not reporting it in your story, is I believe, and I may have my percentage wrong, we reduced county property taxes by 14%, which virtually wiped out what we would gain in the 1%. We gave that back, because I could remember the conversation with Senator Griffith saying, you shouldn't have done that. You should have kept half of it. Maybe give it back, reduce the taxes by half of that amount that you think that you're getting in. So first of all, and one of the things that's not known, and the towns don't know this, because actually when we met with Senator Ritchie, she didn't know it either, is that the majority of the board, the legislative board, is interested in keeping the towns whole. But your 2018 property value and your 2010 census, which is old data, shows that you're receiving $1.9 million more in sales tax than you're actually entitled to. That's what it shows. So I think the thing that we can do right now is that we could extend the contract for a year. It does not have to be a 10-year extension. The extension could be any number of years, but certainly we could wait till the census is done. Now, I'm asking the city right now, if the 2010 census, or if your 2020 census shows that you're actually less than you were in 2010, are you going to be up for the same agreement?
Why are you asking for a 3-year extension and offering a 1-year extension to Ogdensburg? A 3-year extension for
There's been no vote taken by the legislative board.
It was put out in the newspaper, you wanted 3 years extension.
There's been no vote taken by the board. There's been executive session. It's not accurate. I don't know what paper.
Well, we better talk to those guys then.
There has not been any official vote taken. There's been executive session discussion in the boardroom about different things and trying to find out what 8 votes or a majority will go for. The city of Ogdensburg has the right to preempt. You can preempt. If you think that you're being unfairly treated, you have the right to preempt.
Again, I think all this needs to take place in a different setting for everybody. And,
well, one last thing is if you did reduce those property taxes, and which is great, that's for everyone, and then you should have these problems that you think you might have, then that increase should be across the board with the whole county, not just Ogdensburg.
Well, I know in Mr. Lightfoot's presentation, he talked about the things that we worry about. We'll know on the Medicaid, you have a Medicaid commission that we will hear the results of by April 1st, I believe. The commission, which there actually is not there's nobody on the counties on there as a representative. There's a lot of hospital people, which is really good, but there isn't a NISAC representative on that commission. But we will hear by April 1st. Our experience, much like the AIM money, which Mr. Lightfoot represents, that was a $600,000 cost to us. That came out of sales tax. Sales tax was put in the agreement with the New York State back in 1964-65. That was to pay for Medicaid. Okay, so it wasn't covering the cost. Medicaid back in 64-65 wasn't that much. Now it's $24 million. The governor put a cap on it. 2 years after he put a cap on it, he threatened to take the cap off. And now we're hearing the same thing again. So I think Mr. Schiaparelli is correct. This needs to be taking place and negotiated in a quiet environment outside the public, and certainly not on Facebook. But I did want to take umbrage with the fact that this $24 million that we have now was not earned, that it was a gift to us based on the 1%. Certainly the 1% helped, but we are down 150 jobs from 2011, when I first got on the board, to 2014. We reduced by 150 jobs, and 20 of them from 2015 on. This year alone, we've added 26 because of the needs for the opioid crisis, for foster children and other services that we're having to provide. And the mandates keep coming. I can answer any questions if you'd like.
No, I just, my one point back is that while these are big numbers that the county pays out, you obviously are able to pay them and still accumulate a $24 million fund. So this amount suggested to take from Ogdensburg, since you are able to pay all your bills and create a great fund like that, is excessive. But,
Well, is it to take from Ogdensburg, or is Ogdensburg getting more than what they are entitled to? And that's what the other towns are actually looking at. That's what your other legislators are looking at.
According to 8 legislators, and not all the towns and villages in the county.
Well, I think when we do, it's good that we came to this meeting. We found out you're at 100% assessment, so we know that the 2018 is valid. And we'll have the census here that'll be completed this year. The numbers won't lie. And then we'll see what those numbers represent. Thank you.
Anything, anyone else? I don't believe we have a need for executive session, so at this time, I will motion for adjourning the meeting. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Meeting adjourned.